for each phase, you need a subgraph that is designed what the team should try to do or should do collectively to deal with the problems that happen in that game situation. But it's quite connected with the structure of the phases. If you have a model that's more precise, divide the phases more precisely, you may have other subgraphs, maybe the results will be better. Next, please. Now I show you a demo of a software that is being written by a student in São Paulo, Guilherme Otranto, to design strategies based on this kind of paradigm. Okay. This is the demo heading. This is one graph that was previously done. The arcs between the graphs with their connections. You open one of the nodes. Inside you have the possibilities of editing the position of the players, define their rotation, their region of definition. Here it's the example of synchronization of the two teams. This software is not finished, but it has already good properties. Here he's giving examples of the synchronization between players of the two teams. What's part of the definition of the strategy. Well, we have discussed the strategy representation. Now let's go to team game analysis. At first, let's say that the structure of discussion of the game analysis. Let's begin to put the goals that you are following in this kind of analysis. Well, our intent in the analysis is to have answers very connected with the strategy. We want to do things like to identify the strategies, to compare strategies, to try to look for superiorities or inferiorities of strategies, compare different strategy solutions. In fact, we'll look into a phenomenon that we haven't a model. We know it's a stochastic manifestation. We'll sample the information in some way. You know that it's a dynamical system, but for the analysis, we don't know the model, but we could do the analysis even don't knowing the model. And the result of this analysis will give us information about the strategies. let's begin by the game sampling. Well, sampling is something very classical. You have a signal, you define a finite time interval, and you get information from that signal. In this case, the signal will be a representation of the game that you're observing. I put here one state. Of course, we don't measure the strategy. The strategy what we would like to get. But you suppose that you have realized this in the game. What you do is to sample in small time intervals, and from that you will construct this transition. Next, please. This is the sequence of the model of analysis that we have done. We now have a discrete dynamical system that is sampled in fixed time intervals. That will be the game sampling. We will define a state vector that's a set of natural numbers that will describe a state, a situation of the game. And each state component, it's a vector. Each component represents a concept. It could be an action, a player position, ball position, and other kinds of information. For each concept, we have specific information that are also qualitative, hence described by integer numbers. For example, an action could be a pass, a shot, a dispute, etc. Next, please. Now I give you a very simple example of a sampling, an annotation like this. This is a soccer game that people decided to analyze concerning this structure here. That was created by a colleague of us, Fernando Seabras, some years ago, and it was created based on observations that are just done in the screen. You have just pictures like this of the field, or in fact, you have just pictures taken from a common TV transmission. Hence, you have pieces of the field. Usually, you don't have all this information. It isn't like the information that you got with Prozone data, for example. It's the conventional camera that you see when you see any soccer game on TV. Hence, they decided to divide the field in this way. That picture here is based on the defense. So you have a team that's going in attack in this direction. The blues are the lowers of defensive players of the adversary. And the idea is that each time that you go inside here, it's more difficult to play. And hence, here and there are easier to play than inside here. Hence, analyzing how the game goes in time through this structure gives an idea about the complexity of the way of playing, and also the circulation of the ball. It's very restricted. You have the information of the whole field. We are centered in a local imaging. Next, please. Here we'll show an example. See a play of a soccer game, and after the corresponding rotation. Okay, next please. Here's the annotation. This is the position of the player with the ball. These two lines are the lines of the two defensive lines, the representation of two defensive lines. Next, please. And there is, here is the name of the position in the annotation. Next, please. Next, you can go fast now. All the sequence to the goal. Pode apresentar rápido. Pode ir. Esse they go out in the defense lines. Go. inside the lines. We put in these slides just information that's kept by that. You lose lots of information, but it gives an idea. Okay. This is the result of the sampling. You have a time here. This is the name of the team. This is away, team that plays out of home. This is a sequence of kickoff, pass, reception, pass. Here is the coding according with that position relative to that geometric picture. And this is the number of the regions. To give an idea, we divide the field in rectangles. Each rectangle has a number. It is giving an idea of the place of the field where the ball was, and what was the complexity of the game based on that, of the situation based on that geometric structure. Next, please. What do we measure? From that, you do some measures. We need the concept of equivalence class to the measures. For example, suppose you have two movements, like this black one or this white one. According with this notation, both are equal. They begin on the region F, they go to the region MC, after they go to this region here, and finally they go to AC. According to our notation, both are equal. And if you are interested in counting how many times the team could do this, going exactly in this compressed region, we should count twice. Both are quite, one comes from the right, the other comes from the left, but both have the same structure according with the granularity, according with the resolution of this measure. Hence we have equivalence classes. We can have equivalence classes that are very restrictive or they are very broad. These are kind of broad equivalence class. After you do measures, count the number of times that you found the equivalence classes observing data. There is one way of analyzing that data. Next. This data that you have just seen will be analyzed by a grammar. This is a grammar. It's a program that you look for exactly the sequence defined here. We have an initial state, a final state. We have definitions of the state here, and then we have, this is very simple, but it could be more complex. It could be a sequence with definitions of each state of the sequence. And the program will find, you go to the file, describe the whole game with that notation, and you'll find all the equivalence classes that are described here. I can put here don't cares in some of these positions here, and this will increase the equivalence class. Okay? And in the grammar, we count automatically with the computer the number of currents that. And analyzing that, we try to understand what was happening in the field, in the game. Next, please. Next. Let's see an example here based on this measure. This is a Barcelona playing against Celtics. You can see an example here. There is a goal of Barcelona here. This is a notation. The color are the ones writing here. The positions here are called by color that you use in the next slide. Hence you have here the sequence, the idea of the complexity, and how it evolved in time. You see that Barcelona at that time could stay with the ball during many times. They go in, they go out, and they find the way of doing, and finally they arrive to the goal. Their adversary, the Celtics, next one please, had a very different style of playing. They usually worked by this side with right balls with a small number of consecutive movements. This kind of thing we could describe, even with this very poor measure based in very big equivalence classes. Next, please. Now, basketball. This is work that Leonardo and I have done together. This picture means the following. Leonardo has studied a given movement that involved a pick and roll to the finalization. And here, each point here represents one complete movement. In fact, each, not one position, but a complete sequence represents a complete movement. It begins in red and goes to the orange or the yellow. Here, the picture A, you see that it's very complex. You couldn't see any pattern, any clear pattern. Everything could happen on there. But when you divide it in the same data in two different classes, B and C, you can see some structure. The difference between B and C is that the armador, como o nome dele?
Point guard.
Oi?
Guard.
The guard.
Guard.
Yeah, they change the guard. There is one guard for B and one guard for C. And they have different style of play. They take different decisions. That when you see all of them together, you see this confusion. When you separate, you see that there is a consistent. There is something that is a kind of strategy. They repeat. They are used to do that. The team is used to do that. This is a kind of strategy identification. Usually, you need to make hypotheses to extract the information. It's harder to put almost no information, just the structure, and they try to get what's happening. We need to try hypotheses like this and to see what's happening. This means you put more constraints to try to get to the information. Statistically, this is a well-known phenomenon. Next, please. Now let's see the same phenomenon looking for the point of view of the players. If you have a strategy, finally you will need to train all the players. They will have in their mind what each one should do, how are their concatenation, their coordination, their synchronization, and they have in mind what they should do. Next, please. Hence, they have in their mind something like that. They have their personal strategy. And each player has his personal strategy. Suppose, for example, this is a soccer team. Hence, all the 11 players have their personal strategy that are connected. But based in this picture, you can try to analyze this structure. You can try to analyze the personal decision of one of the players. In this example here, you do that with the goalkeeper in the case of soccer. Next, please. Well, this is a strategy for an example of a strategy that we have designed in many years together with some collaborators. For example, Felipe Rodrigues da Silva, that is the coach of the main coach of the ZET Goalkeeper Academy. And this gives all the information for the goalkeeper taking decisions in most of the situations of the games. When the ball is alive and when the ball is on the ground. There is small variations where the ball is not on the ground. And this, we have trained some goalkeepers to use that. The first picture here is the basic movement of the goalkeeper, the two first pictures. The B position is the ball, Here we have the center of the goal. And the goalkeeper is instructed to walk always in the direction that goes from the center of the goal to the position B. It may change rotations. And at position B is the place where the ball is supposed to be. Hence, he is always in the line that is between the center of the goal and the position of the ball. And besides, he's always look in front of the ball. Hence, you see here, when the ball is in position B, he's not with his back parallel to the last line, but he's in a diagonal, because he's trying to be perpendicular to the line that goes from the center of the goal to the ball. All the time, the situation of the game may change in any way, but he always tries to do that. Hence, they have two parameters here. One is the rotation, and the other is the distance from the center of the goal. The rotation is adjusted with the idea of being always perpendicular to the ball line. That's line that goes from the center of the goal to the ball. And the position on this line depends on this picture here. In fact, in this strategy, the goalkeeper has two main positions. He stays on this line here or in this line here. We call this small ellipses and the big ellipses. And the colors here means that, for example, if you take the center here and the ball is here, you have a line here, and the goalkeeper should be here. If the ball is here, we have a line here, and the goalkeeper should be here. You see, the line is the ball line. You have the ball here, you have the center here, you have the ball line, and the intersection of the ball line with this segment here is the position of the player, of the goalkeeper. When it is in this region here, where it's probable to have high balls, he would be in the center of the small area. Well, this is, I suppose, could you understand the idea? It's a rule of movement, okay? And you can find things like that for goalkeepers, or this is a special case for goalkeepers. For other players, you should have a different structure, but also you can define the rules of actions. The goalkeeper is something that's is part of the team, but sometimes it's like an individual player. Player decision analysis. Let's go to, now in this case here, we'll give you a model to analyze decision of single players, and we'll take the examples of the goalkeepers. Let's see these two tapes here, and then we'll go some discussions on that. You see the first goal, it's a high goal after the goalkeeper, above the goalkeeper. Next one, please. Another goal, this time it's a low ball. What's the difference between both? In the first one, the goalkeeper was advanced and he got a high ball on his head, on his back. In the second one, he was he was almost on the line, on the goal, on the last line, and the goal becomes bigger, and he got a goal with a low ball, and he couldn't arrive there. Well, if you analyze one of these situations, you should say for the first, probably the goal should be better than the goalkeeper be behind. The second situation, you would say, probably the best is that the goalkeeper stay far from the last line. Next, please. Well, what is the solution for that? The problem is that if you try to analyze situations like that based on poster evaluation, what you call the poster evaluation problem. It's a mistake, because when you change the movement, for example, of the goalkeeper, you risk that all the players involved will also have the opportunity to change their movement. Hence, the new situation is not valid for the original situation, because it's false. Just one player moved, the other keeping in the same structure that where they are seeing the goalkeeper behind. The other situation is the same. Hence, in general, it's very bad. It's not recommended to do analysis based on poster observations. And what can you do if you would like to analyze if the goalkeeper, for example, is performing well or badly based on the data that you have? Next, please. Let's see what you could do. You could analyze that. Analyze here one situation. Let's see several examples here. It's a cross that comes from left or right side, and there is somebody that goes in the middle. There is somebody that goes in the middle of the area and shuts or make a read, and they try to make the goal. In this case, they are very well succeeded. Next, please. Now the goalkeeper had bad chance. In this sequence, always the goalkeeper arrives to do the defense. Next, please. Well, based on this information, what you could say about the performance of the goalkeepers, when he will succeed or not? You see, this situation was similar, lots of defense, lots of goals. What you can try to do at first is to model the situation. In this example, we have two regions here, left and right, from where we suppose there are high balls coming. And these high balls will always be in this region here. And, well, the ball may come somewhere in this region. And the goalkeeper could stay in one of these two positions. This is a model. I simplify all the complexity of the situation, all the variety of the situations, to an equivalence class where I see just this. This should be as complex as you want, but you have a limited number of data. If you put more parameters, it will be difficult. The number of parameters that you put depends on the number of data that you have, because you need to estimate what happens. What you could do, we could could try to estimate the probability of the action of a goalkeeper being good enough to avoid the goal. Hence, we model this. This XI AI is the model of our situation. XI means the positions of the other players, or the actions of the other players in the first moment, and the AI means the action of the goalkeeper in the first moment. And the AI plus 1 means what is the action of the goalkeeper. And this value here is the evaluation. It was correct or not. It was a goal or not. Okay? In our case, we simplified a lot. We forgot of everybody that was here. We just took in consideration that the ball comes from here or from there. There is a high cross, and there is just the goalkeeper. That is one of these two positions. We suppose just for AI that the goalkeeper is here somewhere, or in this line, or here, he's centralized or not. hence the situation is described in this way, in this case. Xi means that the ball is a cross that comes from here. And the goalkeeper is somewhere here. I is this. Goalkeeper is here, here, and here. And the I plus 1 is 1, 2, or 3. We look to all my data, and I summarize that to this equivalence class. And with that, I will estimate this conditional probability. Suppose that 0 means a mistake. It was not a goal. And I analyze my data. I omitted here this because it's constant for all situations, okay? And in the case the data that we had, that was about 80 situations, this was the observation. In these situations was very bad for the goalkeeper. This situation was also bad, but this one was better. This means that according to the database that I have, when the goalkeeper stays on the headline, is centralized, and it keeps in position 3, that's near this place, he has more chance on making defense. But of course, this model is quite limited. As I said, limited by the number of samples that you have. For example, I could put one parameter more that you need much more data. I could say, let's suppose that balls comes here, or comes here. It's another parameter. More realistic, of course, but requires more data. Okay? This is an approach for dealing with the evaluation of decision. Of course, this data should be spatial data. You should look with games that are of the same level, a lot of games. You should should take a lot of time, or have some kind of automatic annotations. And you should have a model that is consistent with the amount of data that you have that describe relatively well the situation. And with this you can calculate this simple joint probability to take a decision. And in this case, you are out of the problem of posterior evaluation. Okay? Next, please. Or let's go to the game. As I said in the introduction, the game model is much more complex than designing strategies or doing analysis. You need to understand intrinsically how things happen in the game. The relation between decisions and movements, the competition, everything is important for deciding that. But in the line, this is the basic structure. We have strategy A, strategy 2. From that, they take plannings. From that planning, there are the information to the players. Of course, you need models for the players. You need to have information about the frequency of the use tactic decision instead of strategic decision. You need to have information about the abilities of the players, the success or not, lots of information. And here you have the game itself and this iteration. This picture here remembers a lot a structure that you learn, a kind of dynamical system that you learn in engineering that is called control system. This system is in some way controlled by the strategy. It's governed, he's moved by the strategy. He goes to the directions in the state space that is defined here. Next, please. Well, my student is preparing his PhD simulator for that. We are not sure yet how detailed and how good will be the results, but it has a solid structure. In fact, this is the control of team A and the control of team B is the representation, is the absorption of the strategy. Here there is a combination of the strategy choosing, and after a simulation. This is a kind of symbolic transformation, and this here is a numeric simulation. Next, please. Here is you are choosing the strategy. In fact, volta um pouquinho. In this phase here, you can choose the. You are going to control. You may choose the phase that you are. For example, choose the appropriate one. Hence, you need to take the piece of the strategy model that will be used for that time. Next. This is that point, the choice of the height, the choice of the height subgraph. And this is a critical. This is the navigation. From navigation that comes realization. Next, please. This is the choice of the subgraph based on the game phases. This comes directly of the idea of the strategy representation. Next, please. And here is the strategy, this is the navigation. What's the navigation? Suppose you are in a given phase, your team has the ball, for example, you are in the offense. This is your strategy. And the game has a given situation. And you should decide what you do in the next steps. Hence, the first thing to do is try to do a match. You should try to see the reality of the game at that time, and try to see what is the node, what's the situation, the strategy that is more similar to that. Next, please. Hence, you need a kind. Next. You need a kind of match. For example, suppose that your players are in the positions A, B, C, D, E, okay? And you have several options of nodes in your strategy. What would be the one that you choose? The idea is to build a kind of matrix, a kind of measure, distance, to choose the best one. And you have two criteria for that. The first one is geometrical. You see, you try to see the one in which the positions of the players in the field are similar to the one designed in the strategy, as in this case here. And you can take, for example, the mean distance between them, and the sides. We would like to have in these places players that are good enough to do that function. Hence, you can put in the measure also that. If what are between the choice, the possible choice in the state of the strategy, the ones that the player are well positioned according of the function of the strategy. Hence, you look to the geometric position and the function position to the chosen state. Next, please. No, come back. One more. Well, next. Okay. Hence, once you have found this one, we have several ways to decide to go. We can go this way, we can go this way. Many options. What do you do in this case? Here, yes. Now we use an area of computer science that's called planning. Planning means that you have some stochastic information about the place where you are, and you need to take decisions. You need to choose where you are going. And you use a kind of a planning algorithm to choose a good strategy for that situation of the game. We take two measures here. We associate to the nodes a quality. It may be the potential of the doing points, and you associate risks to the arcs. This means associated with difficulty to pass the adversary according with that strategy of movement. It's not that you go from one node to the other, you have strategies here. There are risks related with that. For example, if you need to dribble three persons, it will be more difficult than to dribble just one. Hence, you can have probabilities associated to that. You have risks you have risks to go from one state to another, and you have gains for arriving here or arriving here. You see? Hence, what you do is an optimization. Each way, beginning from the choosing node as from the match, we'll do this kind of measure here. We'll take the inverse of the risk multiplied by the gain. And you want to maximize that. The way that maximizes that information will be the chosen way. If you want to put a more probabilistic flavor on that, you can build a distribution like this, that is based on the measure of this value for all the ways. And you divide them, you normalize them by the addition of all of them. Hence, you have a distribution, and once you do a match, you take a random number according with this distribution. Maybe this could be more realistic. We'll try with that kind of thing. Next, please. I go to the conclusion. What would you know? What do we know? Well, this is it's different. We are not trying to make a video game. Huh? We are trying to be realistic. You want to do predictions in sports. Hence, you may go slowly, but we are trying to go solidly in mathematical concepts and in models associated with the phenomena. And the difference is that we are trying to have as parameters two strategies. Experts as Leonardo and the others can contribute to that. We have formulas to put these strategies. We can model essentially the intellectual actions of the players and their abilities, and they try to see what happened. It's a challenge, of course, it's a challenge, but we are researchers. We need challenges. Next, please. Now I will go to some conclusions. In fact, the conclusions are sometimes possibility of a filter works or just reflections. Something that seems interesting is when we put the strategy, the team strategy in this way, we see properties, you see topological properties that seems to be stable between, it seems that an offensive strategy needs to be several options. It needs to open. And as well, it needs to have return points to have a given degree of stability. Maybe you can find in the filter a number of constraints that we could say that a good strategy must follow that kind of constraints. This is a theory. A theory is based on a mathematical theory is based on a formalization and axioms. It means constraints. Maybe we should play with that and learn good constraints that could be put in a tool to design strategies, to have criteria, and these criteria be inside, be implemented in a tool that would help the coach to design strategies that make sense. And of course, this theory of strategy is not written. Maybe somebody could improve that idea and maybe arrive to a theory of strategy that, of course, should be specialized into each sport that have different characteristics, different number of players, different kinds of balls, etc. Next, please. Something that's, of course, very important, I believe Leonardo will talk about that. He's working with that in professional basketball, and I believe he will talk about that in his talk tomorrow. How this idea could be related to the strategy of training. For example, my first slide, the goalkeeper that trained just how to catch the ball, just technical and physical conditioning would be much better if they could learn, if you could have a strategy that is adequate to the comfort that you have, that has some precise directions, and he is trained to follow that directions, to be very smart, to be very clever, to take decisions that makes sense almost all the time. As I observed in the first video showing the training of the goalkeeper, the first thing that they do is take a decision. If the goalkeeper decides to go to the wrong place, to the wrong direction, he'll never use his techniques, his abilities, his strongness. It's a hierarchical decision. The movement is the last decision. Hence, the degree of importance of decision is essential, completely essential. It's very, very important. The highest level hierarchy. If you take a wrong decision there is nothing to do. Next, please. Game modeling. There is mathematically what's the model of a game. It's a dynamical system, but it's a special class of dynamical system. It's a dynamical system which has two controllers, two strategies, and they have competitions. This is exactly what the game theory deals with. Hence, it seems that a deeper understanding of sports, of games, requires to relate all these ideas in the context of game theories. We should do identifications, perhaps identification in the context of game theory. We should try to understand the stability points, robust points, stability states, robust states, how to go from one to the other. And I don't know about game modeling or about game theory, but I'm intending to study because I believe it's the model that is required to study this kind of problem. What this can imply in technology? We could develop software, good softwares to help to design strategies with constraints of what is bad not to be included. It would be very nice if you had automatic annotations for complex games like basketball, soccer. Maybe there exists this kind of thing, we are not exactly now, but maybe property of some company or things like that. But it would be very important for the development of this field if this kind of data would be available. I'm used to work with data analysis in biology, in biochemistry, and there, all paper to be published should be the data available. Maybe the community here should take some decisions in that way to be in such a way that the research could get more chance of doing a good job. To have data is crucial for doing this kind of study to improve the understanding of how the games work. And I would say more. This sports is a very interesting model to understand this kind of a model, this kind of phenomenon. But it could be useful for many other activities of society, not only for sports. This is one reason. More is for the community to be motivated to have rules to impose that data be free. This is something very, the third one. This is something that's very futuristic, but in thesis it could be done. If you have a simulator, a good simulator, you could put a goalkeeper in front of with the glasses, 3D glasses, seeing the perspective of the player in the virtual field, and having cameras that could capture their movement and transmit to the counter of the game that position. instead of having the control that comes from the software, the control of that player could be done for the player itself. It could be maybe a way of training players. It's something that could be happen in the future, that use virtual reality to educate players, to train teams, to train players, and for that we need simulators. Without simulators, just for joke, you will not have a kind of serious training. Next, please. Well, and finally, I would like to do my thanks. My first thank is for these guys that I followed for many years. I learned a lot seeing their games here in Brasilia, in São Paulo, in several places. Next, please. These are my cooperators. The first one is Leonardo Lamas, the organizer of this meeting. We work together in his PG. Fernando Seabra, that was coach for many years at Red Bull and the other Brazilian teams. Now he works at the Santos Football Club in administrative position. René, that is now he's becoming a PhD student. He works with Fernando Fernando Seabra in soccer, and now he is very interested in this kind of game intelligence related with strategy design in soccer. Clever is my friend, my colleague from USP, that designed the software that counts the equivalence class based on a grammar. Guilherme Otranto is my PhD student that's working with the simulator. Felipe Rodrigues da Silva is my friend. It's which was a soccer player. Now he's right hand of that in his academy. He's a very, very nice coach. I don't believe that in Brazilian selection has a coach better than him. The last one is my son, that I followed for many years, and we learned many things together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, questions? You?
Junior, you've established a grammar and these connections and very complicated things. To get the simulator, it seems like you're going to have to put probabilities on some of these decisions. Have you thought about how those probabilities are going to be placed on the decisions? All these. When I looked at your paths, I see you've got these choices, and how are you going to apply probabilities to choices to give you endpoints that you can start analyzing?
You are sure that the probability is essential. We are not in a previous stage, and we have to arrive to this phase with all this detail. We are still building the structure of the simulator. When the structure is off, you need to have some models of probabilities. I believe what you do is to go to data analysis and take probabilities from the real world. But it's to do realistic models in a simulator, it's a challenge. I believe it to not be with the first PhD that you arrive there. It's just to try to show that it's possible, and I hope that many people in the world can cooperate on that, and you improve models along of time, but I believe that probability should come from real games. But I would like to see several results related to that. For example, what it means when you do strategy training. We design training sections based on strategies, not based on the abilities, not based on the conditioning. How this can change the way of playing.
But the strategies are ultimately going to depend on their probability of success.
Of course.
It seems like.
Yeah.
And the probability of success is going to depend on all these probabilities all the way down the tree.
Of course. Finally, it's a stochastic model, no doubt. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I'm sure you're right. You have stochastic process at hand. You will do approximations of it. You will never have a perfect model, but you can approximate, depends on our goal, to models that give the kind of information that you want. But the probabilities will be there, of course. It's a very complex model. You can try to expect to have all the parameters.
Excuse me, maybe just getting through the problem. Maybe, okay. The goalkeeper case is a good example. It doesn't go to the direction of the simulation, but it integrates these things. So we have a model which parameters could be used to get data, and the probability of success of some values applied to these parameters allowed us to make the prior evaluation. So we had, as maybe one of you could put this slide, please, and then we discuss more precisely. Pode voltar vários. No goleiro. So yeah. So there, where we have Junior, please, you correct me if I'm wrong, but just to illustrate, the K point is the goalkeeper. So you have the line segment in red. You have different possibilities, as Junior said, the rotation of the goalkeeper. He can be just parallel to the goal line or diagonally, and with the right rotation to be facing the ball, which is line B to the middle of the goal. So one parameter, and the other relates to his distance to the goal line. So we have these two, which is quite practical to apply in training sessions because it's easy to follow, and it allows us to analyze games, collect the data, and analyze the probability of a goal, as he presented in some plays where the goalkeeper was too much retracted, so he took an easy defense if he was a little more advanced, and the other where the goal was up high and if it was a little bit back, following this model of ellipsis position. And then there's the probability of being successful or not depending on the positioning and rotation to the ball. So maybe this is the case of a first moment where we apply the probability to decide to evaluate a position being right or wrong. Make sense?
Yeah, the system, it seems, is by definition recursive. So you've got your basic structure, you gather data and apply probabilities, which lead you to think that this may be better than something else. You coach a different way, and then you gather data and apply probabilities. So it seems like you've got the basis of an extremely broad recursive system to help analyze strategies and independent player decisions through time as you gather data and re-input.
In fact, in this model here, as I showed you the example of the boss, if you take all the situations here, it could give you a measure of quality of this strategy for a given set of available data.
But then you apply the data and you maybe change the strategy based on what the data seems to be telling you, and then, change the coaching and do the...
We build models, and if the data criticize the models, accept or not, that's science.
Right. Something interesting in this direction is that we tested this model. So we applied this to, we analyzed 2 high-level goalkeepers, and we also against the data set, and we also tested this against the data set. And this model presented the greatest performance, indicating that at least with the data set we analyzed, which was corresponding to the level of the goalkeepers, it was the best strategic solution.
And this model was built by a kind of a trial and error. I have observed in my son play many times, and after other, we see soccer all the time. And after Felipe has proposed some changes, And finally, we have this analytical test. In fact, this was one of the motivations to define this kind of a test that is independent of the post-evaluation problem.
Martin, please. Microphone close. No, this one.
I have a question. To the question is, where does the mic work?
This one is working.
Maybe we go to the slide with the strategy feedback system. And my question is, what is, in your opinion, the nature of match planning? You know, as far as I see, the team has several options, and match planning is a selection out of these options.
Okay, it's a kind of contextualization of that.
Okay, yeah.
Leonardo and I have discussed that many times during his PG. In fact, if you play a strategy, not for one game, but for a championship, you should have several options. And if ideally you have a simulator, you could try to simulate subset of a strategy against the team, or against the model of the team that you had information about. But more practically, without thinking that we have a simulator, we could make analysis of previous games, try to extract the strategies that team, try to analyze the qualities where our strategy could be superior, where it could be inferior to the one of that team. You should compare the situations, right? In some way, you need to have your strategy and your adversary, or at least you should, at first, I think the way would be that. At first, you try to suppose what's the, or try to make identification, or try to get information about the strategy of your adversary. After that, you try to customize between the options that you have in your strategy to play against.
Yeah, okay, this is what I wanted to point out also. In my eyes, the match strategy is the anticipation of the two teams meeting each other, each with a set of options, and then you choose your match strategy in anticipation of the encounter of the two teams. And maybe it's a good idea to demonstrate the influence of the options the opponent has in the strategy building. If we can go to this slide, you know what I mean, the feedback slide of the match planning?
Match planning,
yeah, this one, stop, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, okay, and you see in planning team A is influenced by the assumed options team B has. So, I would like to stress the interactive nature of this, that it's, if this planning is part of the interaction, the anticipated encounter of the two teams, so that means the options team B has, presumably, influences the planning of team A. So even at this planning level, there is the interaction, and then of course it's much more in the later match. And I would say that so the two arrows leaving planning team A and planning team B meet before the match, and I would say they meet in the match. Yeah. Okay.
Let's say something. What I'd like to say in general, the problem that you put makes a lot of sense. It's important, and I believe there are lots of other problems. But what's important, in my point of view, is that this approach is enough to deal with all this class of problems. We need several papers, people that are interested in that, following this approach, may write several papers, may write several research, may conduct several research, but the basis is very solid. If you go in that direction, consistently take the high data, the high progressive model, etc., you should be in the right way, I believe.
I like very much the approach you take, because theory-driven, and you have this system approach and this dynamical interactive approach, like you mentioned, and I think it's a good way to go for to get more realistic models about what is happening. The second remark is this propagation through the states, and you say we need some kind of the value for a node, in order to achieve it, for node, and also we need to specify the transition probabilities, the difficulty, how difficult it is to achieve it.
I'd like just to jump in the previous point, just for a compliment, a small compliment. Because if I understood right, a way we are approaching the problem is to analyze temporal series, because even in that figure we were presenting, there was a small detail saying that it was a strategy partition. So considering the graph as the full state space in a game, or even inside
in a particular period of the game, there is subsets being used, and these subsets, the criteria to use a subset or another is based on this adaptive process, considering what opposition is doing. So it can be during the game. In basketball, you analyze, for example, playoff series, NBA playoff series, which is quite convenient because you can have 7 games and analyze these changes inside the game and game by game. So yes, you have a full strategy and you select subsets.
Okay, and in this case, you mentioned the necessity of interactive, dynamical, competitive models.
Yes.
And this would apply here, in my opinion, also because if you go through one path in this model, and it leads to a successful end, for example, a shot at goal or even a goal, the opponent will take a measure to prevent you from choosing this path a second time, and this would result in the model in a change of the probabilities. The opponent makes it harder, and the question is whether this is incorporated in your models here, or the problems we have very often is that we have static models describing a match with a figure, and this figure is assumed to be constant, and this is not compatible with the assumption of dynamics in this model. Is there a method or a way to use changing transition probabilities?
Yeah, it depends on probability. It depends on the risk. The risk, in fact, is a probability, the estimation of the probabilities. The parameters finally comes from estimations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. More questions?
Okay. So thank you very much. We go now for our coffee break, and we come back after half an hour for the round table. Thank you very much.